So just real quickly on the Gaza hostage situation, how many of the 98 hostages that are still held are believed to be alive, all 98?
I have to refer you to the Israelis who have been taking the lead in terms of characterizing their best assessment, which is combined with our best assessment of the answer to that question. We have a good sense, we believe, with respect to the Americans, but in terms of that broader universe, particularly the Israeli hostages, they'd be in the best position to answer your question.
That's right, Jake. I just wanted to ask you another question that has to do with the timing and the sequencing of some of the things that the administration has been announcing. We've seen oil prices jump as a result of the tightened sanctions. Was there any, and then we've got other things happening now, sort of new restrictions on AI and chips that are all coming in the kind of final days of this administration. Can you say a word to your thinking about the timing, and then also, whether you expect from where you sit right now that oil prices are going to stay high and that American consumers will sort of bear the brunt of that decision?
Well, first, remember that when the Ukraine war started in those early months in 2022, oil prices spiked way above $100. The price environment for us to put sanctions on Russia's oil sector at that time would have meant a really significant hit to the American pocketbook and the American consumer. The price environment today is profoundly different. You said spiked. Actually, oil prices today are significantly lower than they have been over an average in the past few years. So actually, we have just a fundamentally different price environment, and that is the reason for why now. Because President Biden was not going to impose sanctions on Russia's oil sector if it meant an undue burden on American working families. He does not believe that the action he took places such an undue burden on them, and he believes, as you project out over the course of 2025 on supply and demand, that the oil market is very well supplied, that oil prices will stabilize in a place that does not impose undue burdens on American consumers, and that on the one hand, we can hit Putin's pocketbook without, on the other hand, taking too big a whack out of the American people's pocketbook. That was not an opportunity available to us 1 year ago. It is now an opportunity available to us, and that is why the president took this decision. The other point that I would make is that the new team is setting up for a negotiation. And in a negotiation, you need leverage. And part of that leverage has to come from the kind of economic pressure that makes Putin see he's going to continue to pay a significant price economically. And so this is also in service of an effective diplomatic outcome that will produce a just and sustainable peace for Ukraine.
First, can I go back to something Josh asked at the outset, which is why you all believe that this ceasefire deal is sort of near its ending point, near the finish line. Can you offer some additional specificity about what has changed? Because I feel that we have heard you all express a level of optimism many times at various points over these last several months.
I'd have to go back and check the record about my level of optimism, at least in recent months, because in fairness to your question, there has been a little bit of a Lucy in the football quality where we thought we got really close and then it just didn't happen. But I haven't stood at this podium and said anything particularly optimistic about a hostage deal in quite some time, and that's because we haven't been in the position that I think we are in today. Why is that? It's because the gaps have fundamentally narrowed on the key issues. The formulas over prisoner exchanges, the formulas over the details of how Israel's forces will be postured in their pullback in the Gaza Strip, the details over how to conduct the humanitarian surge in the wake of the guns going silent. These things now, on paper, the gaps between the two sides are slowly getting removed one by one, and issues are closing. I think there's a couple of reasons for why this is happening. The biggest one of which is that Israel has achieved its substantial military objectives in Gaza, and Hamas has suffered catastrophic losses, military losses over the course of the conflict. And when you put those two factors together, we believe that the time is ripe to get a deal and to have it close. And our hope is that it will happen here in the near term. Now, I cannot predict you it will. I cannot promise you it will. And, if in 5 days it hasn't happened, I will be the person who is probably least shocked by that. But I think there's a good chance we can close this, and I think because of that good chance, we have to use every ounce of our diplomatic effort to try to get it across the finish line, because that would be good for everyone, and it's also profoundly in the national interest of this country.